All right, welcome everybody. It's sort of a special Friday Soulherder stream. Normally we do Monday evenings, and then Wednesday night is Merfolk. But it's the summer. I've got some time this afternoon, and I just wrapped up a very enjoyable league today. So I thought I would show you guys a replay of the league. It's nice for me because it's going to be like a stress-free league. Like, don't have to make any decisions. Can just show you guys the games, talk about sideboarding decisions and gameplay decisions, and hopefully just have sort of a laid-back, kind of relaxed stream with no pressure. So this is the list I've been playing. I think just in the last couple of Soulherder streams, I'm pretty sure just card for card. It's been this way now for at least a couple weeks. I believe it was Paintball Demon who brought up Hostage Taker 2 or 3 weeks ago. It had been mentioned before in the stream, and I think I might have actually already ordered my Hostage Takers at some point from TCG Player. But up until like 2 or 3 weeks ago, it was a card that wasn't on anybody's radar. Like, you know that there's 60 card versions and 80 card versions of Soulherder with Urian, without Urian. There's even 60 card versions with Urian. There's Ether Vial lists, like non-Ether Vial lists. There's even collected company lists. There's Tide Hollow Sculler lists. There's people running Deep Forest Hermit versus Thragtusk. There's a bazillion different ways you can play Soulherder. There's just plain blue-white, Black Splash, Red Splash, Avalanche Riders. The list just goes on and on and on. Probably, I mean, when you keep following all the branches, there's got to be at least 20 different sort of viable, distinct approaches when you combine everything. 60 card with Ether Vial, 60 card without Ether Vial, 80 card with, 80 card without. Then you're talking about, again, Collected Company, and then you've got Avalanche Riders, Kiki combo or no Kiki combo with the red. Is it kind of extra, or do you want to run the Kiki combo? That's another potential division. Lots and lots of lists. I've chosen to focus on 60 card lists. I had been one of those people running a singleton Urian in the main deck as opposed to a companion. It came to feel a little bit expensive for me, the 5-drop Urian in the main deck. Like casting Court of Calling, you need resources to get X equals 5, and that's quite a big board. And if you've got quite a big board, odds are you're probably doing sort of okay anyway. And Urian seemed a little bit like overkill in the main deck. When Companion first came out, and all we had to do was put it in our sideboard, run 80 cards, and just cast it from the Companion zone every game for 5 mana, that was brilliant. And I think that 80 card traditional Urian Companion is probably the strongest version of Soulherder that's existed at this point, up till now. But once they changed the companion rule, it just always felt really clunky to me, so I just moved away from the 80 card lists. Just to clarify why, the extra cost to put the companion into your hand is pretty clear, I think. Like, it just, that's part of what makes it clunky, but once you go to 80 cards, even if you keep the proportions the same in the deck, the variance is going to increase. The pockets of lands, like you could hit 3 or 4 lands in a row much easier than you can do in a 60 card list with similar proportions of lands and spells. And I just found that happening all the time. Either I would hit a pocket of like 6 cards with no lands when I was looking for a land, or a pocket of 6 lands when I was looking for spells. The variance started to get to me. Also, running 80 cards obviously dilutes the rate at which you draw your most powerful spells. In our case, that's going to be like Path to Exile and Force of Negation. Our deck is not a fast deck. It really needs its interaction to slow down the opponent and establish some kind of loop, some kind of lock on the game, begin to generate card advantage with all of our snakes and Eternal Witness. slow the opponent down, create a bit of a wall to their attacks, start cycling counter spells to stop whatever combo they might be trying to pull off. But you can't do any of that really if you don't draw these key interactive spells. So I'm up to 4 paths. I'm up to 4 forces. I feel like they're both so powerful that we really want to just max out on those. And we further max out on those by running 60 cards rather than 80 cards. Once you go to 80 cards, you start running somewhat less effective removal and interactive options. Like you might add a couple of Assassin's trophies, but then you're really leaning hard on your black mana. Like you could have removal in hand, but not be able to cast it because all you have is like a prismatic vista and a couple of like an island and a forest or something. So then you have to run like a basic swamp, and your mana gets a little bit weird. So anyhow, that's just to explain, I think, partially why I'm on 60 cards, is I really like drawing paths and I really like drawing forces. So beyond that, 60 cards, obviously you've got a lot fewer slots to deal with. I am on 2 Chord of Calling right now. At 60 cards, running like 3 or even 4. It felt like I was drawing Chord a little bit too often. Obviously, you don't really want it in the opening hand. You kind of want it around turn 3 or 4 once you've established the board and you're really looking to get something important onto the battlefield, either a Soulherder, maybe you get an Uro in like a grindy matchup. So yeah, if you run 4, you risk running. You run the risk of drawing like 2 in your opening hand. That's happened to me a bunch of times, and 2 just feels like the sweet spot. 1 would be too few. It is a really important part of the strategy, and so like I said, 2 is the sweet spot. It's an amazing card to grab with Eternal Witness from the graveyard, because that in itself is a little bit of a loop, because you can Chord for Eternal Witness, get back Chord for Eternal Witness, get back Chord for Eternal Witness, get back Chord. Just to get a bunch of Eternal Witnesses on the battlefield, have a bit of redundancy in case the opponent removes 1 or 2 of your witnesses. Eventually they're going to run out. You're going to start drawing Ephemerates, and then you've got your plan going. 2 chords, and then lots of flex slots. Knight of Autumn and Deputy of Detention and Venser, and Oro, at least as Singleton Oro. Those are all pretty much core for Bant Soulherder at this point. Hey Sespen, thanks for joining me. I thought it would be fun to do a replay of this league, because some of the games, all of the games really were a lot of fun. Hostage Taker is just such a blast to play with. It's really remarkable, I think. So I was just saying, Deputy, Knight, Venser, and a single Oro at least. Those are pretty core at this point. I don't consider those flex at all. I'm pretty sure that I consider the snakes core still. I know this is another sort of point of divergence among Soulherder players, is like what 2 drops to run. Some people are still very high, I think, on Charming Prince as a way to like respond to a board wipe. You can flicker an Eternal Witness and have it come back at the end step, and then you can immediately start attacking, start rebuilding from the graveyard. But it's sort of a niche situation. I even tried Nyambi instead of Charming Prince, and then just realized that slot wasn't really doing that much, and I'd much rather have like a 3rd Eternal Witness than a single Charming Prince or Nyambi. As for the 2 drops, some people really like walls. Some people, in particular, like Wall of Roots. If you're playing Chord of Calling, it is a very, very strong card to play with Chord of Calling, because it can contribute 2 mana. But with Chord as a 2 of, and we've got Birds of Paradise in the deck. Wall of Roots, I think, not super necessary. We've got 4 paths to slow down aggressive strategies. We've got more removal in the sideboard, and you've got Stonehorn just to stop attacks. So don't really need the walls for defense. And the snakes can attack, even though they're tiny. They're still a win condition in that sense, whereas walls are not. They do just kind of sit around. What else? 2 Soulherders feels fine. If they exile one of them, we can go get another one. That's really the argument for running a 2nd one, I think. It's not that we necessarily really want to get 2 on the board or something like that. It's just There's a lot of Path to Exiles in the format, and Soulherder can easily get dealt with. And if it just dies like with a Fatal Push, you can of course grab it back with Eternal Witness. But if one gets just straight up removed from the game, you do have a second that you can either draw or cast a Court of Calling for. So Knight of Autumn, Deputy, Uro, and Venser sort of locked in as core cards in my opinion right now. So then it brings me to my flex choices. I think Stonehorn Dignitary, for me at least, is becoming pretty stock. It is in the Bant colors, and it's so much of the modern format wants to attack and kill you by attacking. Even the control decks right now in modern runs the Stoneforge package, which they're going to get down Batterskull, they're going to play a bunch of swords, they're going to play Uro. Those cards don't really do anything if they can't attack, right? So it might seem like Stonehorn, like you want to sideboard that out against control, but these days in Modern, you kind of want to keep it in. So a card that cares only about attackers and stays in against control, I mean, that's a card that you probably want to have in your main deck. That's pretty funny, Sespen. Maybe you need to make like a compilation video to prove to me that that's the case. But anyhow, two feels fine. I could see myself running 3. It is an amazing top deck in a lot of situations, but you can consider the Court of Callings as extra copies of Soulherder. So anyhow, Stonehorn Dignitary for me, very justifiable in the main deck, as close as you can be to core in the standard sort of Bant approach with Soulherder. Just behind a card like Venser, I'd say. And then I have my 2 flex slots, which actually put me into the Black Splash. I've got no black cards in the sideboard. I've got no additional black spells in the main deck, apart from these 2 4-drops. In general, I have felt totally fine between the 4 Birds of Paradise and the Overgrown Tomb. People have destroyed Overgrown Tomb with Field of Ruin, and I've gone and gotten it back from the graveyard with Eternal Witness. It's not like if it's dealt with, we're never going to be able to cast our black spells. We've got things to get stuff back from the graveyard. So I did grab Overgrown Tomb, and I did win that game, casting Siege Rhino. Siege Rhino, a way to win through board stalls. It just throws Lightning Helixes at the opponent. Don't need to say too much more. If you play a Siege Rhino and then cast an Ephemerate on it, and then catch the rebound with the Ephemerate, that's 9 damage to the opponent, 9 points of life gained. And you've got a 4/5 Trampler if that's relevant on the board. So you get a lot for your 4 mana. It's a very restrictive mana cost, but Modern gives you access to lands that make it not very difficult to establish Abzan colors. I mean, I could see going up to 3, but it's never, you know the deal. It's like if you add a card, you have to trim a card. One of the things that has felt the best to me, well, there's a lot of great things, honestly, about this list right now. Like, I don't want to go down on birds or paths or forces or ephemerates or snakes. Don't think I want to go down on Eternal Witnesses. That's, I mean, a potential trim. I could go 3 Soulherders, 2 Eternal Witnesses, but I think that's got to be wrong. I think Eternal Witness is just going to be better in more situations. If an opponent wipes the board, we don't really want a Soulherder. We really want an Eternal Witness. Not going to trim Deputy, not going to trim Knight. I really love 2 Uros. It just crushes any kind of grindy deck in combination with everything else, all the other advantage that we're generating. I've just been super impressed with Uro. I don't want to go down to 1 again. And then these 4 cards to me have just completely proven themselves. So then you're left with these 2 chords. And I prefer the versatility of Chord because maybe what we really need is a Knight. Maybe we don't really want a Soulherder. And in that case, Chord is just infinitely better than an extra Soulherder. So the deck just feels really tight to me. I've been tuning it over the past couple of weeks since I added Soulherder. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be like results oriented, but the list has been performing better than most of my other Soulherder builds, including this league I'm going to show you. So would this work with Noble Hierarch? How often do you make black with birds? I would say birds is the black source. I don't know what percentage of the time, but it's got to be at least like 25% of the time. And that's 25% of situations where I would be stuck with one of my bombs in my hand. I would say that the Exalted from Noble Hierarch in some builds might be more relevant. Maybe some decks are running more flyers like Restoration Angel or Urian, where getting in the air with a bigger flying creature every turn can be a significant clock. I guess a significant addition to the clock. But for me, just Birds has been incredible. It just makes it so that I can play these 2 black cards without really sweating it. Like if I don't draw any green fetches, but just like Prismatic Vista, I'm not going to be able to get the Overgrown Tomb. And Birds actually, I remember it won me a game against Ponza where they had a Blood Moon out really early on turn 2. And I guess Birds in that game, it was more valuable because it made white, so that's not really a great argument against Noble Hierarch. But in a deck that needs black mana, like that's why I'm running the Birds, and it's just been feeling good, and I haven't felt the lack of the Exalted. Like, how many games playing Soulherder are you going to win because your dork is getting in for 2 damage instead of 1 damage? I mean, for me, it seems like the overwhelming majority of my wins come when I establish some kind of basically unbeatable board state where I've got a bunch of counter spells in hand because I just grab them with Ephemerates and Eternal Witness, a bunch of paths, like just 6 creatures. The opponent can't really wipe my board because I can just Venser their Supreme Verdict. I've got Uro, even if they do Supreme Verdict. It's like these sort of irresistible board states, and Exalted is like a drop in the bucket, so if that plan of getting to that point is impeded because I'm playing Noble Hierarch and don't have black mana, that's a big deal for me. So that's it. That's the explanation on Birds over Hierarch, and it doesn't need to be a big conversation. If you feel like trying this exact list but with Hierarchs, feel free. Let me know how it goes. I would recommend this list to anybody who's interested in Soulherder. I said on the Discord, I guess yesterday, that this list with Hostage Taker in particular, and maybe with 2 Uros, I guess, is the most fun that I've had with Soulherder, and that's kind of the main point of Soulherder for me to begin with, is having fun. I mean, with Hostage Taker, I've done so many crazy things. Like, I've taken an opponent's Snapcaster Mage and cast it from Hostage Taker to let me recast a Chord of Calling from the graveyard. I think I might have gotten like a Soulherder or something. So Hostage Taker, just like a massive swing in the game there. It's like I play it and I get the Hostage Taker, I get the opponent's Snapcaster Mage, and I get to cast Chord of Calling. Potentially, I don't know if it was Soulherder or Eternal Witness getting back Chord of Calling or something, or getting back a Force or Counterspell to be able to sort of shut down whatever control player I was playing against. That was one cool thing with Hostage Taker. I've taken Tarmogoyfs and cast them. I've taken Thought-Knot Seers and cast them. That's amazing, because then you get to take a card away from the opponent, and you get to draw a card when it leaves the battlefield when you take it with Hostage Taker. I've tucked away my own Coiling Oracle with Hostage Taker with Soulherder on the board, so that every end step, I blinked my Hostage Taker, which exiles the Hostage Taker. When it comes back in, when it goes away, it brought the Oracle back, which draws me a card. Hostage Taker comes back in, exiles the Oracle, Soulherder gets triggered again. And then if the opponent wipes my board, I'm leaning on their life total, and they have pressure to get rid of my creatures. The Oracle pops back out, and he's ready to attack. He's ready to draw me more cards. I was saying, like, thinking about Hostage Taker, somebody was just asking me, what do I think about it so far? And it's a good card, right? It's a well-priced card with good stats and an amazing ability. And that's just kind of a fact. But when you put it into a deck like ours, it's really elevated, like a couple of steps, because most decks that might play this, like imagine humans, right? It is a human. They're only really going to use it to take away an opponent's thing and cast it, right? It's like, oh, that's great value, pretty good, right? But for us, yes, we can do that also. I just mentioned situations where I did that, but we can benefit greatly with all our Enters the Battlefield creatures by taking our own stuff and recasting it. Like if we really need a top deck, we can grab a Ice Fang Coatl with Hostage Taker and just recast it. We draw an Ephemerate. We can Ephemerate the Hostage Taker, and then the Ice Fang Coatl will come back. We'll draw another card. It just synergizes really well with what we're doing. All these exile effects are growing the Soulherder. So it's got synergy with Blink. It's got synergy with targeting our own stuff, in addition to just being a good card that takes the opponent's stuff and lets us cast it. So if you think about the sort of magic math on casting Hostage Taker, like just picture a situation where I take a Tarmogoyf, right? So normally when you play a creature, I don't know how you would describe that as far as a 1-for-1 or 2-for-1. It's basically just getting one card worth of value, right? However, it's going to take away the opponent's, let's say, Tarmogoyf, right? So it's not just one card for that price of one card that you now have. It's also taking away a card that the opponent has. So that's a 2-for-1, right? Then if we cast the Tarmogoyf, it's a 3-for-1. And it can get even crazier from there, like when you start to add our card drawing spells, or if you take away an opponent's card drawing spell. Like if you take away their Ice Fang Coatl and cast that, it's like, I guess it's a 4-for-1 or something like that. So just a ton of value in one card. And as I mentioned, one of the most important things for me is that it's just a blast. I mean, how many times in your Magic career have you taken away an opponent's Thought-Knot Seer and cast it yourself? I took away a Reality Smasher, cast it, and attacked for lethal. I mean, that's amazing Magic right there. So anyhow, that's the sort of summary. I feel really strongly about playing 60 cards. It really increases our odds of drawing Path and Force. For the sideboard, I love having such a diverse selection of cards. Against any given matchup, I'm bringing in like a handful of any number of these. And across any league, I tend to bring in like every single card because Modern is a very diverse place. You know, you've got stuff for control, you've got stuff for artifacts, you've got stuff for Eldrazi, got stuff for red, you got stuff for creature decks, stuff for any number of matchups. The sideboard has felt really tight. Mostly singletons. Only 2 ofs are Celestial Purge, Disdainful Stroke, Pithing Needle, and Teferi. And all of those have just proven themselves to be worth playing 2 of them. Disdainful Stroke, great against so many different decks. It's great against Storm because it hits their Past in Flames and also their Gifts Ungiven, but also just great against any deck running Cryptic Command and big Planeswalkers. Good against any kind of combo deck, like trying to put Resolve ad nauseum. Maybe not the best counter spell in that matchup, but it still has utility. Good against Titans, but then also we've got the Ether Gust, which is even better against Titans because it doesn't care about Cavern of Souls. So sideboard has felt great because there's 11 different cards. As I go through the replays of this league and show you guys my sideboarding decisions, I'm probably going to have to check back with this list to remember what I brought in and took out because it can be hard to keep track of. With Soulherder lists, I'm sure that you guys know that it's the lists are constantly changing. So when casting, for example, a Chord of Calling, I have to think about like what 3-drops I have in the deck at this point and what 4-drops. But I do love this list. Hopefully it can be one that I stick with for a little while and continue to enjoy. So with the deck tech out of the way, unless anybody has any questions, I'm going to go ahead and just go to the replays. So since I'm doing this live, well, hang on a second. Some of you who don't know, I guess, the result of this league may want to look away for a second so that you don't see the result of the matches. I don't have the benefit of doing this after the fact where I can like edit out when I go into this screen. So anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and open the first round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so ready to look at the replay of round 1 of this Modern League. I won the die roll. And let's see. It's a really beautiful opening hand. Opponent, let's see if they kept their 7. Looks like they did. Okay, so we've got enough lands in hand. We don't really want to draw anymore, so it makes sense to open up with the fetch land. Get a Temple Garden tapped, probably follow up with the Snow-Covered Island. Opponent with the Mishra's Baubles, likely Death Shadow at double Mishra's Bauble. Okay. Bloodstained Mire, Overgrown Tomb. So probably, I guess, looks like Jund Shadow. They don't have Luris in the companion zone. I don't know if decks running Bauble, like I guess Death Shadow decks are still running Bauble in the main, and I don't think I saw Luris at all in this league. I know that some people are trying main deck Luris. I have run into it a few times. But at this point, I mean, this is pretty definitively Jund Death Shadow. It could be 4-color Shadow, but with blue as the 4th color. But it looks like Jund. So opponent's going to Inquisition me. Yeah, I mean, main deck Luris it's still a really good card. I actually ran into main deck Luris unexpectedly against Lantern Control, and I had taken out all of my Path to Exiles, so I had like absolutely no way to stop their value, and I felt bad about myself. So opponent gets to take away one of my value cards here, but it's sort of hard for them to dig through all this stuff, slog through all of my card drawing effects. So as I mentioned, we are going to just go ahead and get a Temple Garden tapped. They get to draw 2 cards off the baubles. And we immediately drew another Eternal Witness, so pretty excellent. If you've got land drops to make for the turn, it always makes sense to run the Coiling Oracle out to try to ramp. In this case, I did not, but I hit the best card in the deck with an Ephemerate. All right, opponent cracks the bauble. Obviously, they had... well, that was their third bauble. They looked at their top deck and my top deck last time, so I guess they knew that I had another witness coming. And if I check I think they looked at my top deck again here, but I can try to open up the game log. Although sometimes it doesn't open on the replays, so I believe, if I recall correctly, that they looked at my top deck with the Mishra's Bauble. Okay, so here's a Tarmogoyf. Not the scariest thing in the world. Drawing another basic land, pretty nice, because Death Touch would be pretty sweet. For me, well, it's always interesting when doing replays to think about what we could have done differently, and to give you guys like an opportunity in a very comfortable setting without the pressures of the clock actually ticking down, just to think about what lines you guys would choose here. So would you guys, like a pretty clear option is go like Witness, grab Witness, right? So then you're just expanding the board, getting back another Eternal Witness. Give me a second, guys. I have to respond to a text. I have a client, I guess they're on vacation in another time zone, and we've been doing Skype, and they've now missed like 2 appointments. The first one, their excuse was that they're in a different time zone, and they didn't realize that when we set a time, even though we always meet in New York, that they assumed the time was in their time zone, and it's just like a little bit hard for me to deal with. So then we rescheduled for Friday, and they actually just missed the appointment today. So anyhow, let's get back to the chat here. So for me, anyhow, you could play the Witness, get back Witness, just develop the board, continue with value. But for me, I think just playing one of my snakes and then holding up Ephemerate seems good. In this case, again, since we're continuing to hit our land drops, I think just playing the second Oracle is the best choice here. Okay, and we hit another land, which would give me the option of playing the Ice Fang this turn. But I just chose to cast Ephemerate right now before the opponent can untap and kill one of my creatures. Playing against a deck like this where they have a lot of removal, ghost blocking is always like a sketchy thing, because they could always be holding up a path, in which case we try to block. We try to Ephemerate, and then they cast a path, and we lose our Ephemerate. I do have a Coatl in hand, so even if they remove both of these oracles on their turn, we can still flash in the Coatl and catch the rebound. So just trying to get value right now seemed like a good idea. Hang on a second, guys. I have to respond to this again. Okay, anyhow, this is wild. So getting back to the matter at hand, I did draw another land. So that was just an amazing turn with oracles. I'm going to be able to cast all my snakes. I just decided to crack my land right away. Okay, Seal of Fire, not really a big deal. Flash in this Coatl. It does have Death Touch. The Seal of Fire is on the board. Again, sort of whatever here. Force is decent. It's a card I usually side out against Death Shadow decks. Opponent's going for Traverse. It looks like they have 4 types, and they were able to get a Death Shadow. So playing that, they've now got 2 threats on the battlefield. I just pathed the Tarmogoyf right away. Not exactly sure why. I guess I was going to play the Eternal Witness and then grab Path. I think I started overthinking this, and I got back Ephemerate, which I think is just like a little bit too greedy. I'm sitting on 2 forces, which can slow them down a lot. I don't know. I feel like maybe Path would have been the better choice. Maybe you guys have an opinion on that. I could have attacked there into the 1/1 Death Shadow, but I don't feel like growing the Shadow. Once we get a bigger board, it should be pretty easy to close the game out. Opponent cycles the Peat Land, plays another Peat Land, goes to attacks. So I'm just going to try to Ghost Block here. Doesn't seem like anything super scary. I'm sorry, I have to check this text message again. Okay. Well, that should be it, hopefully, for the text messaging for the time being. So the plan here is just to Ghost Block, because I do have the Force up if they try to kill the Coiling Oracle. So opponent here, oh, well, okay. This is what, they made it bigger. I have the Ephemerate up here. They used the black mana that they made off the Now, this could have been black mana for no reason, just to make the Death Shadow bigger. But now, not only have they pinged themselves with the Nurturing Peatland, but they've also hit themselves for 4 more life, making the Death Shadow a 6/6. They're dismembering this Oracle. I can counter it, but at this point, the Ephemerate is going to blink him anyway, and yeah, I mean, things sort of look okay still. But yeah, but you guys see how this went, and that was just a really absurd turn. Again, I could have gotten the path instead of the ephemerate, and I did get blown out. The opponent had exactly Nurturing Peatland to ping themselves for 1. Then they had a Dismember to get them exactly to a 6/6 Shadow. I had cast Ephemerate, which resolved even after all that interaction, taking it out of combat, making exactly lethal. So just a very unfortunate turn of events. If I had, for example, just gotten the path and just gotten rid of the Death Shadow right away, it almost always has to be the correct way to go against a Death Shadow deck, because they don't have too many threats. And so odds are, if I had just passed the Death Shadow, they might not have had another creature for another few turns. I would have had plenty of top decks to continue just developing value. But this was kind of a heartbreaking loss right out of the gate in this first round. So this is clearly lethal. I drew a sort of useless Force of Negation here, and the opponent, I guess the replay stops there, but with Double Strike, they were able to get me down to exactly 0. So again, heartbreaking. We can go ahead and jump into game 2. Let's take a quick look at the sideboard. So in this matchup, I think it's fine taking out all 4 Force of Negations. You're really fighting along the card advantage axis in this matchup. So the snakes are super important just to develop a board while keeping things in your hand. Force of Negation is, card negative, since you're most often pitching something, exiling something when you cast it. They do have nice spells they're trying to cast, but we've got stuff like Veil of Summer that can try to counter like a Thoughtseize or a Fatal Push, while not going down on cards, basically. So all 4 forces out. Looks like I took out Venser. It's kind of expensive, and just their creatures cost 1 and 2. We're not a tempo deck. They're just going to be able to replay their Death Shadow or their Tarmogoyf. Not a big deal for them. I trimmed 1 bird because they have lots of removal, and I'd rather just not keep... Well, trimming 1 still leaves 3, so it's not like I'm changing the math too much on birds. But I'd rather skew slightly more in favor of actually hitting land drops rather than keeping a hand with like 2 or 3 Birds of Paradise. Looks like I didn't think Spore Frog was valuable enough to bring in here. I took out Night of Autumn. A little bit of random life gain, not that valuable in the matchup. So again, things that I took out. Looks like 4 forces, the 5, 6, and 7 with the Night of Autumn. And if we look real quick, the list should be over here for you guys with Cardboard Live. But I am going to go ahead and check real quick the deck to see what 7 cards I would have brought in. Definitely 2 Celestial Purges. The Winds of Abandon. Worship is excellent. If you can resolve it against them, it can be impossible for them to win. That's 4. I left Ether Gust out. I brought in Veil and then 2 Teferis. They don't have too many, I guess, green and red spells that Ether Gust would be amazing against. You guys can let me know your thoughts about how Ether Gust is against Jun's Shadow. For me, it didn't seem like it had enough value. So again, I'm bringing in 3 pieces of removal, a Worship, a Veil of Summer, and 2 Teferis, all of which are excellent in the matchup. All right, so game 2. Kind of a weird hand, but I think I did decide to keep this. It's on the play. We can cast an early Hostage Taker. You can agree or disagree with the hand, but I decided to give it a shot. All right, so they're Inquisitioning away the Ephemerate. They can't take the Hostage Taker. Path was an excellent top deck. The deck has so many good cards in it that I felt semi-justified in keeping a hand that had Ephemerate, which again is sort of the best card in our deck. Any top deck of a value creature just makes Ephemerate incredible, including the Hostage Taker that I have in hand. So now opponent gets to choose what they take here. And they chose to take the Hostage Taker. Makes sense. In this spot, with the Inquisition here, I felt like it would be fine for me to just crack the fetch, develop my mana, and actually path the birds so that my mana would not be susceptible to any bolts or fatal pushes in subsequent turns. So I guess I could probably go ahead and get black mana with this, or actually just blue-white, doesn't matter because I have another fetch in hand. And if at some point I draw an Eternal Witness, we'll be able to have black mana and cast the Hostage Taker. So opponent has opened up with 3 hand disruption spells, obviously decimating my hand, but we're developing our mana nicely. And they have no threats on the board, so... Soulherder is an okay top deck. It's going to make anything that we draw from this point out a lot better, unless the opponent, again, has some kind of removal. Street Wraith going down to 10, and a Tarmogoyf as a 4/5. So that's a clock. We drew a Deputy, which was an excellent top deck. Extremely versatile kind of removal that's going to grow the Soulherder once, and then again at the end of the turn. Hopefully, Soulherder will be quickly out of the range. Well, it already is out of the range of... what happened there was Deputy blinked Tarmogoyf, and then Soulherder blinked Deputy, which blinked Tarmogoyf again. So that was actually +3 in one turn. So now we're outside of Bolt, and we're certainly outside of stuff like Collective Brutality and Kolaghan's Command. Okay, tap Stomping Ground. Opponent has a Seal of Fire. It doesn't do a lot, but it can trigger Revolt. They go to my face, and they kill the Deputy. It's an interesting choice. This land was a bit of a dagger, dagger in my heart. But I did tap some lands to sort of bluff something. Maybe the opponent shouldn't attack if I've got an Ice Fang Coatl, so a little tappy. Think about it, then untap. And then pass the turn. You know, like, you got to try to play your bluffs just the right amount of thinking, right? Like, you don't want to sit there for like 5 minutes. But you also don't want to rush through it, and you don't want to overplay it. So the opponent looks like they're drawing land as well, and they did go down to 6 life. So I think they must have just cycled another Street Wraith there. I guess I can open the graveyards here. So we're really, really hoping to hit some kind of creature that we can bounce with Soulherder here. Oro doesn't exactly qualify as one of those things, but it is a redraw. It does gain us life. It does let us potentially play a second land this turn. So still an excellent top deck. I drew another land, which obviously not the best. And the fact that it's a snow-covered plains, it's like the only land in the deck that makes me not able to cast Oro on this turn. But I can keep a card in hand, still represent that I've got something going on. The opponent probably can't really attack well with this Tarmogoyf. Hey, McDerp, thanks for joining here. And these bots, I don't know how to deal with them. I guess I can deal with them later. Okay, opponent continuing to draw lands here. I will certainly thin my deck out, get another blue source. Purge is good, doesn't hit Tarmogoyf, but it will hit like a Death Shadow if they do play one of those things. Let's go ahead and start with Uro. I'm gonna leave Ephemerate and Path. Those are the easiest things to sort of recycle with Eternal Witness. Uro's gonna draw some more stuff, more lands, but at this point the board's looking pretty good. I'm not gonna blink Uro here, gonna leave him on the board. Opponent just conceded here. I guess they were flooding out. We kept a very land-heavy hand and happened to draw semi-well. Opponent kept a very hand-disrupty hand, but seemed to sort of end up flooding out. So pretty easy game 2 there, despite the hand getting wrecked. Let's go ahead to game 3, see how that one went. Let me see if I can type in, like, ban these things. Ban. Oh, I could just do that. That's awesome. Ban. I just have to tap on their names. Nice. All right, cool. I figured it out. I'm growing as a Twitch streamer. All right, opponent's going to be on the play. Beautiful opening hand. Picture perfect. Opponent mulls to 6. Draw a street, cycle a Street Wraith, cycle another Street Wraith, nurturing Peatland. Thoughtseize. Okay, so they take the path. 3 things in the graveyard on turn 1. Well, 4 things if you count mine. Now, that was a sick top deck. So McDerp, this is the first round of a league, and this is the 3rd game. I lost game 1 in a heartbreaker when I tried to ghost block. An opponent's Death Shadow was at 1/1, and they pinged themselves with Nurturing Peatland, paid 4 life to dismember the Coatl, which made the Death Shadow a 6/6. I forced the dismember. The Ephemerate resolved, taking the Coatl out of combat, and then with the exact 2 mana left, the opponent cast Temur Battle Rage, which made the 6/6 Shadow deal 12 damage. I was at exactly 12. I had such a good board state, but they got me. So anyhow, this I was saying was a killer top deck there. It does require me to strangely run out the Vista. The opponent might see the writing on the wall and play around a Veil, but I've got to take my chance here. So untap Stomping Ground. Opponent casts a Tarmogoyf. Okay, so we didn't get to cast the Veil there. I was hoping for like another Thoughtseize. That would have been pretty bomber. So here, I'm just going to get rid of the Tarmogoyf. I don't really feel like dealing with that guy. If I played a Coiling Oracle, maybe I have to chump. Doesn't really do much for me right now. Could potentially ramp me, but I don't like that Tarmogoyf sticking around. The opponent did mull to 6. I mentioned in one of the games that they don't run a lot of threats, so just deal with the threats when they show up. Don't be greedy. Don't get caught by Temur Battle Rage like I did in game 1. Okay, here's the Thoughtseize. Pretty rough. They take my Veil of Summer away. Overgrown Tomb, untap, down to 2 life. Extremely aggressive. Now, I think the opponent punted here. And me saying that probably shows you guys why they punted, but why is it a punt for them to cast this right now? Yeah, they can only get a land. So they got a basic swamp. Womp womp. And I don't draw land, so I just have to play a Coiling Oracle, draw Soulherder. Opponent untaps. They cycle the Peatland, and then they just scoop. I mean, they did mull to 6. I guess they cycled 3 Street Wraiths. We dealt with their threat with Winds of Abandon. They know that we've got another Oracle in hand. Don't think I can draw cards at this point. Yeah, this is like way past when the game actually happened. So they just chose to scoop. We didn't have to fight through game 3. I guess the opponent thought that the odds weren't really worth staying in it. So 1-0 in the league right now, beating Jun Shadow. Actually, game 1 was almost locked up. I've said it a few times already now, but I don't think I even misplayed. They just had like triple Exaxes. They had the Death Shadow, they had the Peatland, they had the Dismember, they had the Temur Battle Rage, they had exact mana, exact colors, exact power and toughness, and I was at 12 life. So I was way ahead on board. Opponent just comboed me out. I feel like this is an extremely favorable matchup, so I was happy that I was able to get the win. So that was round 1. If you guys want to look away for a second, I mean, you may know the result of the league already, but if you don't want to see it, I'm going to go ahead and open up the second round right now. All right, opponent looks like they won the die roll. Kevin Osor with the monkey avatar. Maybe this is a playful opponent. Another beautiful hand. We've been getting favored by the deck so far in this league. Basic Plains. You love to see it. Usually means it's not the most busted of decks. Okay, so and then like a fun floppy dog frolicking down a street. You also like to see that. So what are we playing against? I was like, is this going to be dog tribal? She raised him from an orphaned pup and gave him a life of love. With his last act, he thanked her. So a good boy right there. So selfless savior on the battlefield. We've got 2 forces against what looks to be a creature deck. So not the best. Effectively sort of a mulligan to 6, but we've got good cards in hand. So let's just go ahead and get a forest and play the birds. Okay, second basic plains and a stone. Okay, so this is making a lot more sense now. They are running some powerful cards, not just dogs. So I think the opponent got okay, Sword of Fire and Ice here against a green deck. Interesting. Perhaps that's their only sword in the main deck. Getting in with the dog. And probably just gonna go ahead and play the Eternal Witness here, getting back a land so we can continue to hit land drops. Oh, nope, it looks like I chose the Ephemerate line, which also could potentially hit me more lands here. So this happened in, I think, like game 2, maybe, of that previous round, where I had the option of either going Eternal Witness or, like, Oracle Ephemerate. And look, I think both times I just chose to open up with Oracle. But there's nothing keeping us from casting Eternal Witness next turn to get back the land and make our land drop. So it's sort of it's a pretty close call. I think Oracle is probably correct. So the opponent's putting in the sword. I haven't even talked yet about the fact that I have a Knight of Autumn in my opening hand. Obviously amazing against Stoneforge decks. So the opponent, the reason they didn't get Batterskull with Stoneforge Mystic is they already had it in hand. So I guess they don't want to attack with the dog. I chose, I think, on the end step to go for Ephemerate here. Like, if they have removal, it's sort of okay. Actually, no, we've got Force to protect against removal, so yeah, that was the plan. Ephemerate the Oracle, we've got Force backup. Okay, we're drawing excellent cards, but we would really like to advance our mana too. So on the rebound, let's see if we can hit a land. We know there's a sword coming, so that path was great just to be able to sort of, like, once they equip a sword and go to combat, you can path the creature. It only gives protection from blue and red, so path still hits the creatures. So in this spot, I mean, pretty clear. I guess we just jam Knight of Autumn, deal with the Batterskull. Okay. I chose to tap the birds in case they somehow pathed or bolted the bird after I tapped out all of my lands, in which case I wouldn't be able to... I wouldn't have white mana up to be able to deal with the creature with Sword of Fire and Ice next turn. Could also path Stoneforge on my turn, but it would give them the 4th land, and then they can play a 5th land and still just cast the sword. Unlike Batterskull, in the case of casting and equipping swords, it's really not great added value to pay 2 mana and get it in with Stoneforge. It plays around counter spells, and it's 1 mana cheaper, but it's not like Batterskull where it's 3 mana cheaper. So if I path the Stoneforge, it kind of neutralizes any benefit. It just basically gives them a land and doesn't do anything for me. If they're going to play their equipment, they're going to do it whether through Stoneforge or with the extra land that I give them. Okay, they play Athalia, and in response to this, I'm going to go ahead and path the Stoneforge. Interesting choice to go with Thalia rather than playing the sword and trying to attack with it. It would make this Selfless Savior a 3/3 that would, if I don't block it, it's going to deal 2 damage and kill something, so blocking seems like it makes sense, but I would have to double block if I want to kill it. I mean, I was expecting them to do that, but they decided to play Thalia. So in response, just path the Stoneforge. They do activate it to get the sword on the battlefield, but we do have a Soulherder in hand. We're going to be able to blink the Knight and just destroy the sword. So, I mean, this seems like an extremely favorable matchup, particularly when you have the Knight of Autumn in your opening hand. So I go Oracle first, just see what I hit. I did hit another land, so just tap the 3 lands, play the Soulherder. I don't love attacks right now, so just blink the Knight, blow up the sword, and see if the opponent has anything else to pressure us with. Path on Soulherder. I've got the Force for that. I kind of had it all this game. And I think they just scooped it up at that point. So yeah, Knight of Autumn really proving its value. There is a ton of Stoneforge in the modern metagame right now. I think Blue-White Control is like the #1 deck, and I'm pretty sure that Stoneforge is just like a staple at this point in Blue-White Control. So I'm going to go ahead to the second game now. And I can quickly show you guys what the sideboard looked like for this matchup. I took out all the forces because, again, opponents can just play their equipment through Stoneforge. So Force potentially not the most valuable in this matchup. As just like a white deck, splashing red potentially. I think that the Sunbaked Canyon is just for like cycling. I don't think they actually play any red spells. They could just play Wrath of God, in which case Force of Negation might be pretty good. But I did cut them all. And let's see, what else did I take out? I trimmed 1 Birds and 1 Misty. I've actually been trimming a land on the draw. It's something that I've been doing with Merfolk for a long time, and it seems to work with any deck, really. It's just math. When you're on the draw, the chances of you hitting your land drops are just higher because you get one more you get one more draw, basically. So trimmed a land, trimmed a birds, trimmed a cord, which may or may not have been correct. I think I was running low on sideboarding time and just finally decided to trim a cord. If Knight of Autumn is super important in the matchup, then keeping cord in does make sense. So we took out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the cards that I would have brought in are what? Winds of Abandon, I guess. Maybe Worship. Is Worship in here? Yeah, I guess I brought Worship in because it's just a creature kind of attacky type of deck. Did I bring in Spore Frog? I guess I brought in Spore Frog. 2 Teferis because it can bounce like anything, and 2 Pithing Needles. So that's the 7 cards. Pithing Needle can be awesome just naming Stoneforge Mystic. Just slows them down a ton. But if they do get like a Sword down or a Batterskull down, you just name one of those and it does help. So brought in Winds of Abandon, Worship. That's 2 Spore Frog, and then 2 Teferis and 2 Pithing Needles. Opponent is on the play. Beautiful opening hand. Actually, no, I spoke too soon. Not beautiful. I have the Dork. I have the 2-drop. Got Pithing Needle. But we can't play the birds, so this is unfortunately a mulligan. Opponent kept their 7, I think, and you know, we got sort of blessed with maybe an even better 6, basically. So we're gonna keep this, put one of the birds on the bottom, and yeah, let's see what the opponent's got for us. Oh, no, they actually mulliganed to 5 here. So it's already a good matchup, and then they're mulliganing to 5, opening with Ether Vial, which is kind of a do-nothing card. I could play Pithing Needle and name Ether Vial, but like I'm not afraid of the Ether Vial. This is absolutely something you learn when you play Ether Vial decks, is when opponents care about your Ether Vials, that's often a win for you. Like you want them to care about Ether Vial. You don't want them to kill all your creatures. And stop. You don't want them to stop your threats. So Pithing Needle is just going to be much more valuable naming like Stoneforge or naming Swords or Batterskull. So yeah, just a very easy choice just to play out the birds. I did draw a land for the turn. Opponent has the Stoneforge. We can see what they get. I believe it was Batterskull. Yep, it was Batterskull. So I think I'm just gonna I'm gonna play a snake and then Pithing Needle, naming Stoneforge so that Batterskull is like 100 turns away. Coiling Oracle, drew a path. I mean, things are getting pretty dirty here. So name Stoneforge. Opponent's going to tick up their Ether Vial. And yeah, might as well get in with Stoneforge. It's a good attack. Teferi is a good draw. I'm going to play it and just maybe bounce their Ether Vial and draw a card. Hostage Taker is a nice one. And I still got Path to Exile up with the birds. So if the opponent... I can get in with Coiling Oracle because I'm just going to Path the Stoneforge. Okay, they go to attacks. As I said, I'm just going to Path them. They play a Giver of Runes, which if I draw a land now, I can take that with Hostage Taker and just cast it, which Okay, I did draw land. Take Teferi up. Get some mana and do the hostage taker thing. Okay, opponent scoop before I got to play Giver of Runes. Now, this was a bit of a buy of a match. It's an artifact deck that I had a Knight of Autumn in my opening hand in game 1, and they mulligan to 5 in game 2. So a very easy round. I'm going to go ahead to round 3. Again, if you guys don't want to sort of see the results, you can look away for a second. I'm going to click out now. All right, back for round 3. I finally won a die roll. That's pretty nice. And yeah, looks like we're mulliganing here. Oh wait, no, I've got the Birds of Paradise. So it's not a mulligan. This was a mulligan to 6. I accidentally clicked very quickly through the opening 7. So particularly since it's a mulligan to 6, I can keep this hand. I chose to bottom one of the forces. When you're mulliganing, force isn't the best card, just because again it's card advantage, card disadvantage, I guess I want to say. So we're really hoping that our Birds of Paradise lives, and we will have to protect it if they try to kill it by exiling Oracle, which puts us pretty far behind in any matchup. So sort of fingers crossed on this one. Verdant Catacombs does not look very good, because Inquisition taking away our Oracle is also pretty terrible. Street Wraith. And it's Inquisition, so it's going to resolve. It's going to take our Oracle. And yeah, now we just really need to draw something, right? We need to draw really snakes, but a land will do, because that lets me at least play the Knight. Now, what mode do you guys choose here against what looks to be like Jund's Shadow again? So just waiting to see what you guys think for a second. Any thoughts? Anybody with me here? Which mode would you want to use with Knight of Autumn here? 2 counters. Obviously can't destroy an artifact or enchantment, but you could choose to gain life. So, looks like you guys gain life, McDerp says. Going once, going twice. Yeah, I think it is gain life, right? Because they could untap and just kill it. And we're just going to blink it anyway at some point, probably. So if we make it a 4/3 and then blink it, there's no value basically out of the counters. So yes, we gain some life. Let's see how it goes for us. Opponent, Blood Crypt, they're down to 12. They cycle a Street Wraith. They Thought Seize me. It's a pretty nasty hand out of Death Shadow right here. Okay, what do I got? Soulherder. Well, I could keep that in hand and potentially pitch it to a Force of Negation. But I can't imagine not casting the Soulherder here. Remember, we are in a mulligan, and the opponent has wrecked our hand. So we're just going to go ahead and gain 4 more life. Obviously, with this 5/5, we wouldn't have been able to attack even with the 4/3. So gaining life, definitely the correct choice there. So what has the opponent done so far? They've cycled 2 Street Wraiths. They've had 2 fetches with 2 shocks to get their life down. And they had two hand disruption spells. They still have 5 cards in hand. Okay, they Fatal Push my birds, which is actually a very savvy play. Turns off Ephemerate, turns off Path. Plays another land, goes down to 6 life. Plays a Traverse to get another Death Shadow. They have exactly 4 card types in the graveyard. I don't have any blue cards to pitch to counter the Traverse. And I have absolutely no kind of block here. So I'm going to take 7, go back down to 21. But this plan is only going to last so long. Eternal Witness. I don't even have 3 mana. It's not even a blue card I can pitch to Force. So we just go and gain 4 more life again. I mean, Knight of Autumn doing its best to help us hang on here. But without white mana, without removal, even if I draw Deputy here, which would be sick, I don't even have the mana to cast it. So this mulligan is just getting crushed by the nuts. Look at this. It's a third Death Shadow. So still no blocks. We're going to go down to 11. And yeah, we drew a Coiling Oracle. That's sort of something, kind of. Okay, well, Path was an excellent top deck. The deck is doing its best to help me out, but the fact that the birds got killed really sort of shutting me down. Now, this is another spot that I should pause and ask your guys' thoughts. What do you blink here? If you blink the knight and gain 4, you go to 15, which means you can take 2 of these hits, take 14, and still be at 1, and just chump with 1 creature. Another potential line, obviously, is to blink the Coiling Oracle, hope to hit a white source so that we can path one of these Death Shadows. If you blink Oracle, you could potentially draw a blue spell that you could pitch to force and counter something scary. What do you guys think? What am I targeting here? You know, in hindsight, I think you guys have it right. But let's try to think through the line. Let's say I hit like a Temple Garden here. I'd pay 2, I'd go to 9, path one of their Death Shadows. I guess now I can still take 1, and I'm chumping another one. So that would overall be a pretty good line, I guess, because they'd have 1 fewer Death Shadow. We'd still, in theory, be able to live. But, you know, I think it was the wrong choice, but I think I did choose to blink the Knight of Autumn. Cool that you guys both chose the Snake, and that I do agree with you. It's a really difficult position to be in. And the opponent, they cling to Dusted my Ephemerate right there, just so that they can draw a card. So they're going to untap and have 3 cards in hand. They go straight to combat. Again, my whole line was just gain 4 and take 14, go to 1. So if they have any way to grow their Death Shadows, then the game is pretty much over. Herder will likely be lethal if you hit land and path. Well, it could be. That's another good point. So in this case, you can see what they had here. Oh, wow, it just went through that super fast, but I can show you guys. It was a blood-rushed Gore-Clan Rampager, so some really sweet tech. I love this card. Gore-Clan Rampager is from, like, the set right when I started getting back into Magic, and I definitely played my fair share of this card. It's pretty amazing. It's like an uncounterable Teamer Battle Rage, and in this case, I'm taking 14 plus 10, so 24 damage. I think even if I had pathed one of their creatures, it wouldn't have mattered in the end, but obviously it's still super important to think through our lines and try to figure out what the best options are. So anyhow, yeah, if I didn't blink this, I'd be at 11. They'd be 1 Death Shadow down. I could be at 9 if I hit a shock, but yeah, they're getting through for 17 points of damage at least here. Even if I blocked with everything and I path, this would be like a 5/5. So we'd have 5, 6, 7 points to absorb through 18. Yeah, I'd be dead through everything. No, I don't think I can check, and I didn't check during the game. It's a good question, but I don't know what it was. And anyhow, we were in a hole from early on in that game. If you just take a glance at what the opponent was working with in their graveyard, it's just it's a lot of stuff. It was going to be really hard for me to beat this. On a mulligan with three Death Shadows, it's just too much. So very difficult game 1. Let's go ahead and look at game 2. All right, hoping for a good opening hand here. That was a mulligan. I think, right? Yeah. So now I can keep this, and I think I'll just bottom one of the lands. Was sort of on the fence, but Birds does give us access to all of our colors, and if they kill one of them, we've still got another one. So chose to bottom the Overgrown Tomb, I think. It's not the best hand in the world, and we are mulliganing again. Opponent also mulliganed to 6. We're going to play the Temple Garden first and go with Birds of Paradise here. Yeah, McDerp, I think that's sort of the takeaway, is that for Death Shadow decks to beat us, they need to sort of, why is this so gigantic? They need to have really, really good stuff, and for us to not have good stuff. So they're starting out with Mishra's Bauble. And they looked at my top deck. I think 2 more Mishra's Baubles. They're gonna look at their top deck, my top deck. It's I think they're digging furiously for a push to kill the Birds of Paradise. But even if they get it on these draws, I could still get the Ice Fang onto the battlefield. So we haven't won the war, but we definitely got that battle. Birds of Paradise. No summoning sickness, ready to go, and they cycle the Street Wraith. They're really trying to kill these birds before I get to my main phase. Another snake, like the best possible draw right now. So gonna open up with the Coiling Oracle, since we did hit our land drop, and we hit another land drop. So just really, really quite nice. I got an untapped Hallowed Fountain, and then just decided I can. There's no reason to rush the Ice Fang. I'm gonna chill a little bit. Okay, untap Stomping Ground, down to 14, down to 13, tapping the Peat Land, almost certainly a Tarmogoyf, and there it is. So I think the call here is basic Forest. We do want to start getting closer to Death Touch with the Ice Fang. So removal would be sick here. Celestial Purge, I should have been more specific. Celestial Purge can't kill the Tarmogoyf, obviously. But again, another snake, pretty much the nuts, but we also have Chord of Calling. When you're planning on courting, remember that Monodorks are going to be sort of cost neutral for the turn, since you pay 1 mana to get it on the board, but then even with Summoning Sickness, it can contribute to Chord of Calling. So I was pretty sure the play here was going to be... Well, this is another instance of asking you guys what the play is here. This is like, again, doing replays. This is like the value in doing replays is trying to learn and potentially come up with better solutions than I actually did during the games. What's your guys' line for this turn? McDerp, I'm kind of with you on those, for sure. I would add Stoneforge matchups. I've just felt like really favored in Stoneforge matchups. Yeah, because we have 4 paths, so if they're running Uro, not really a big deal. I never sideboard out paths against Uro. I think it's such a good answer. But anyhow, curious if you guys watching have some idea of what you'd like to do on this turn. Obviously, we could just like main phase a Coatl, see what we draw, maybe play something else, maybe get the birds down. I could keep holding up Purge in case they have a shadow, or maybe like a Liliana. What's the idea? Birds and pass is an interesting choice, I think. But then what's the idea when you pass? Okay. Maybe just get Ewit and Hostage Taker next turn. That's another cool line. I like it. Honestly, I can't really remember what I did, but I mean, one obvious line I think is just play the birds and then just chord right now for Soulherder, right? Try to get ahead with card advantage. Seems like a good line. So what did I do? There's really not, I guess Eternal Witness would just get back the Chord of Calling. But if I do it on their turn, they could have a Cling to Dust in hand, making Eternal Witness kind of bad. Uro is another really strong choice because we can just start blocking, and then that's just fuel for the Uro in the graveyard. I feel like I got a Soulherder here. But let's see what I did. Yep, I couldn't resist the value. Yeah, I agree that it was too early for Uro. It wasn't going to do enough there. Opponent Inquisitioning with 2 more green mana floating. They took the Deputy, which is a little bit rough. But it looks like they're just casting another Tarmogoyf, which means that, you know, we're going to get to untap with the Soulherder, which is pretty strong. If I had held up Cord, I mean, it wouldn't have been that super amazing because I could have gotten, like, a Deputy, but yeah, I guess Deputy would have been okay because if they play... So with Inquisition on the stack, I would have had to tap out for Cord. If I play the Deputy, I'm only grabbing 1 Tarmogoyf, but if they play the second Tarmogoyf, I can blink the Deputy and grab the second Tarmogoyf. But honestly, I'm not very unhappy with how things have turned out here. I did have to think for a moment about whether I wanted to keep my life total a little healthier than 9 by chumping with with the Coiling Oracle. And with another Snake in hand, I think I did feel comfortable just blocking with the Coiling Oracle. Okay, there's so many like fine decisions to make, and it looks like I decided not to block with the Oracle, but I did really think about it. I'm continuing to draw pretty amazingly here. The Purge is a little bit dead with 2 Tarmogoyfs, but Ice Fang's amazing, so let's start with that. Another land doesn't do a ton for us, but we are going to get an extra card draw on the end step. I could cast Ephemerate now, but it might be premature. We do have a lot of mana to spend, though, here, so I could totally see it being reasonable to cast Ephemerate on the main phase here. But given the fact that we're so far ahead anyway, we're a little bit low on life, we could try to do some shenanigans with Ephemerate on their turn. Like, if they feel like they're being pushed into a corner with Soulherder, maybe I could save it with an Ephemerate. Getting this Windswept Heath on the battlefield will give me the potential to make these Icefang Coatls have Death Touch. So that's an amazing draw. So at this point, we're just hoping to fade Thoughtseize for like 1 turn, because if we get Worship down, then this game is in the bag. Okay, Verdant Catacombs for a shock. They cast Traverse. Sure, this is going to be a Death Shadow. Still hoping to dodge Thoughtseize here. 2 Death Shadows, 2 Tarmogoyfs, and I was super happy when I saw this because now it means they have no more black mana. Worship is safe in my hand. The Death Shadows are going to have Summoning Sickness. Obviously, they can't attack this turn. If you guys were playing and you didn't know what I had in hand, and you're playing against, well, let's see, they do know that I had Deputy and Windswept Heath. Would you guys attack with the Tarmogoyfs if you were playing the Death Shadow deck? I mean, I have a bunch of attackers, but only 2 in the air. They've obviously got enough beef here to block Soulherder with no problem. I guess maybe they Inquisition me at some point, so I believe they know about the Celestial Purge. Any opinions on attacks with Tarmogoyfs here? So McDerp, you're saying that if you had this board state, you would probably wait till next turn to attack? Maybe they untap and they have some kind of trample, right? That makes sense. Like this isn't enough to cast Battle Rage or Gore Clan. Yeah, they do know about the Purge for sure. So yeah, I mean, the Coatls are gonna. I said they do have Death Touch, and if the opponent doesn't have a Bolt, I would just trade for the 2 Tarmogoyfs here. But it's hard to say whether that's good for them or bad for them. They would still have 2 of these, but knowing that I have the Purge, probably better for them to untap, take another draw step, maybe even cycle the Peatland to find something solid. Maybe they have like a what is that card? A Wrath of... No, what is it called? The 2 mana... What is it? Or is it... I forget. The board wipe, Kozilek's Return. That would just, like, decimate my blockers. even just any kind of removal to get rid of a snake seems good. So I think I agree with not attacking here. And I think opponent wisely just passed through. I think I made a stupid mistake here, though. And I think I didn't get another basic, which was just ridiculous. There's so many situations where getting black here would just be the right call, but obviously I really need to turn on Death Touch. But I guess I was just like sitting pretty on the worship and not worrying too much about anything. But honestly, like not getting a basic there was just a mistake. I even noticed it in the game, like 3 seconds after I did it. Night of Autumn, not really super relevant. Another Ephemerate is beautiful, and two Ephemerates with Worship on the board. I chose to cast with birds. I don't think it really mattered too much. And now, like Soulherder, yeah, it's just going to get even more value. Just get in with the flyers. The Veil is actually kind of incredible. Opponent thought seized. I finally get to Veil. I think they took one of my Veils earlier in the match, and Hostage Taker is a fun one here. Opponent knew I had the Veil because I got it off of a blinked Oracle, but they still went for the Thoughtseize. Interesting. I don't know that they had any other options, really. Another Peatland, and the opponent chose to scoop there. That was game 2, I believe, so I think we have to go ahead to game 3. That was a mull to 6, I believe, on my part. So opponent's going to be on the play. I like this hand. It's got no blue, but it's got white mana for Path to Exiles. And so I'm going to keep this. I like Spore Frog. Pretty spicy. Our deck really often just wants turns to draw lands and play cards and gain life, and yeah, opponent scooped. So Inquisition here, a little bit rough. What are they going to take? What do you guys take with Inquisition here? Uro, right? Uro's the best choice. Uro is not the best choice. Any opinions? If you're playing Death Shadow, what do you take out of this hand? I mean, obviously you don't know what else they're holding. They did keep 7 cards, so it means they've got some stuff to work with. Any ideas? I mean, I feel like you gotta take a path, right? Again, they don't have too many threats, so, really? Do you take the Spore Frog? That's interesting. Yeah, so McDerp takes Path. I think I take Path. Like, they're lucky if they draw 2 or 3 creatures over the course of, like, the first 5 or 6 turns. So if I've got 2 paths, like they're not pressuring me at all. But they took the Spore Frog. Opponent getting shook by the Spore Frog. Actually, this little guy doesn't care if he's in the graveyard. The whole point of this card really is to just recycle it with Eternal Witness. So yeah, an early punt by the opponent, I think. Although Sesben made the same choice, so it's something that I think a lot of Magic players might consider reasonable. Now, for me, the opponent now knows what I have in my hand. You would expect me, almost without a doubt, to be playing the Canopy Vista on my turn, right? So let's go to my turn. I drew a Veil of Summer. So now I have to play a Forest. Opponent goes, why is he playing the Forest? What is this noob doing? Right? He's gonna have a tap land next turn. Maybe they think I drew a basic land, so that I want to play it on turn 3. But even then, if I drew a basic land, I still want to play this, right? Because it's going to come in tapped anyway. Like, so. Opponent traversing, fair enough. They can't, all right, so they get a swamp, which, you know, seems nice, right? Swamp. Let's appreciate the artwork that he chose. It's pretty sick. Gigantic collapsed columns next to like an acid river. Thoughtseize. Sorry, opponent. I think you've pretty much lost this game now. I drew a land. Oh, things just going my way. Another land. So just excellent right now. Unfortunately, Can't really do anything except hold up path, I guess. Okay, opponent cracks the Catacombs. They get a Stomping Ground, untapped, and they play a Tarmogoyf. Okay, so I'm gonna get a breeding. You know what? I think I chose here just to get the basic. Or no, what do I do here? I think the play is you go get Hallowed Fountain, get Tarmogoyf off the table here, crack this, get a basic, play Uro, then play the Canopy Vista. I don't know what was the sequence I did. I guess I figured I could do Uro plus Path on my turn. So so there's no reason to get an untapped shock right here. I don't think. Even if I don't draw a Veil there, I might just play the Forest to bluff Veil. Interesting. I don't know though, man. Like, because then if we draw a 2-drop, we still don't have an island, I guess. So yeah, you could be correct, but opponent didn't read my bluff at all, and it wasn't a bluff as things turned out. Oh, all right. So I did go with the basic here. Which, let's see. Then what's the line? I do want to get black mana, obviously, with this. So I'm gonna play this and get Okay, that makes a lot of sense because I want to get black mana, so I'm going to crack this for the Overgrown Tomb, cast Uro, play this untapped because I have my 2 basics, and then I can path the Tarmogoyf. I should wait until their turn to cast the path. Sometimes I get a little bit antsy and do it ahead of time. I'm pretty sure it's just strictly incorrect. Okay, we drew a Stonehorn Dignitary. Things just kind of getting a little bit nutty at this point. All right, so yeah, I didn't do it on my turn, so pretty nice. Opponent playing the Overgrown Tomb, untapped, Collective Brutality. I can path the Tarmogoyf. At this point, the opponent gets to see what's in my hand. It's all pretty good stuff. They only did 1 mode with Brutality. They're running low on cards, so they didn't kick it or escalate it, I guess. So pretty much have to take this path here, right? Yeah. Okay, another Tarmogoyf, but we do have a Hostage Taker, which is kind of cool. And a land, so we can potentially Ephemerate to protect the Hostage Taker. So it's just going really nicely now. Got a Hallowed Fountain in this spot. I think I had a Misty here, so the only white source that I could get... I guess I could get a Temple Garden, but I wanted double blue. I don't think well, anyhow, let's see. Opponent's cycling a Peatland to start. They're going to try to push. They know I think they know I have an Ephemerate. They must know I have an Ephemerate. And so they had another removal spell. So good for them. They get back their Tarmogoyf, but, you know, they needed two removal spells to make it happen. They're down to 1 card. I've got a Stonehorn and a stacked graveyard if I ever get to Uro. Oh, I do have an Uro. So I think I just chose to go with Uro on this turn. Leaving up green and blue, just in case, and white, you know, just in case we draw a snake or a path. I drew a Winds of Abandon, so this is a sorcery, so I just cast it right away to get rid of their Tarmogoyf. Now they're in a really tough spot. And they just conceded. I guess, what does this say? I think they've got it, what's it called? They've got enough types in their graveyard. They've got sorcery, land, instant. I guess that's it. Sorcery, land, instant. So sorcery, land, instant. So yeah, they actually don't have enough. If they have a traverse in hand, then they can't use it to go get a threat. So yeah, Uro, once again, kind of pulling his weight. So really nice round. That was round 3. Nah, McDerp, there's no more conversation to be had. Like, you should be running 2 Uros. I was on 2 for a long time, liked it, but when I was trying to sort of finagle with flex slots, I went down to 1. I was like, oh, I can just chord for it. But people path it, and it's never a card that you're unhappy to see. It's good against aggro. It's good against grindy decks. It's good against control. It's just amazing. It's It is pretty good with Ephemerate, right? If we've got another creature that we can catch the rebound with, you can get a lot of value by blinking it, gain life and draw a card, maybe play another land. It's really, really good. Like, it's one of the cards in the deck right now that I absolutely wouldn't consider changing. So for what that's worth, I'm going to go ahead to round 4 now. If you guys want to look away, you can do that. But here we go. Okay, I won the die roll. That's awesome. This is round 4, sitting at 3-0. Unfortunately, having to start with a mulligan. It was a one-lander with birds, and I didn't feel like losing to Monoscrew. This is significantly better. What do you guys bottom here? What is the call? We can only keep 6 of these cards. So what's the choice? What are we going to bottom? Okay. Sesbin says the Force. I see the logic behind it. Card disadvantage. So if we're already mulliganing, we might as well pitch the Force. McDerp, do you have any opinion on what I should bottom here on the mulligan? McDerp also says the Force. Interesting. So I was thinking, I haven't played against any combos. I haven't played against any Tron. Even though I'm mulliganing, if it is Tron, Force could be a great card. So I decided to bottom the Ephemerate, of all things. I'm not bottoming the 2 lands. If it is in fact Tron, and I got the read correct, Deputy is amazing against them. Witness is good against every deck. And then it basically comes down to Ephemerate versus Force. And while Ephemerate is one of the best cards in the deck, there are more of them in the deck, and I'm still going to get the effect of these 2 cards even without doubling it up with Ephemerate. I felt like I should bottom the Ephemerate. It might be the first time. It's possible they mulliganed. Honestly, I guess we'll see what they have. But it was just, I looked at the hand and I thought, what matchups could I be playing against? And if it is either Eldrazi Tron or Green Tron, if I bottom the Force, it's probably a mistake. So might be the first time I bottomed an Ephemerate, but I'm pretty sure I did. Opponent did not mulligan, by the way. So I just played a land, and then I'm gonna run out Eternal, and I drew an Ephemerate off the top of the deck. So the deck was congratulating me on my choice, I guess. All right, so things looking pretty good here now. We've got our Ephemerate back, we've got our lands cooking, and let's see how things go. Basic Waste, you love to see it on turn 2. Warping Whale, getting rid of the birds. Whatever. Certainly not countering that. They just saw me get a land back. I guess they don't know what I'm playing. And I drew another land, so I think that has to be a misstep. Has to be a misstep. Because now we've got like Force online, and we can recycle it with Ephemerate, so pretty clear the play here is just attack and hold up Breeding Pool for hardcast Force. If they cast like a Thought Knot, we can always just Ephemerate in response and get back to land again. Okay, it is in fact the Thought Knot Seer, so we're going to crack that land. We're going to get the Breeding Pool tapped, since I don't need it right now. Ephemerate the Witness, get back the Windswept Heath, and now all of our colors are totally set, despite them getting rid of the Birds of Paradise, and have to imagine that they're gonna take the Deputy here, but that still leaves us with a Force, which is, if you've played this matchup enough, you should know that you shouldn't board out Force of Negations, unless you have a lot of other counterspells to bring in, because some of the cards that are going to wreck you the hardest are the ones we need to counter with Forces, like Karn the Great Creator, Ugin the Ineffable. Ugin, honestly, I'm not so concerned about Ugin, although it does reduce their costs for their creatures. At that point in the game, they've got a ton of mana anyway. It's really Karn, and above Karn is All Is Dust. Like, you always want to have a counterspell in hand once they've got 7 mana. So Deputy of Detention pieced out, and let's see what we draw. We need something decent here. Fortunately, we do get to catch the rebound with Ephemerate. We'll have that in hand. So that was a sick draw. And you can see the power of Eternal Witness just getting back lands, like ensuring that we hit our land drops, ensuring that we hit our colors. So this is just so busted. This is like probably the best use of Hostage Taker that I've had yet, because we get to draw a card off of Thought Knot, and then we get to cast him again, hopefully, and take a card from the opponent. Like, that is ridiculous. So count the value, right? Right now it's a 2-for-1, right? Gonna draw a card. That's a 3-for-1. I guess you can say that Thought Knot took something already, so we're getting it back. So still potentially just a 2-for-1. So we're just really hoping that they don't untap and have like a Dismember or something for Hostage Taker. Chalice on 1 is pretty rough because I love Ephemerate in this spot and we can't counter it. We also have a Birds that's not really very useful. Blast Zone, you never love to see it, but better than maybe a Tron piece. And the opponent looks like they just have a stupid Matter Reshaper. You got it, opponent. Whoa, Nikachu. Thanks so much, man. And welcome, everybody. I'm going through a replay here of round 4 of a league I just finished up this morning. It was a really exciting league, and I'm hopefully there are some of you here watching now, because I just grabbed a Thought Knot Seer with a Hostage Taker. It's like, it's so amazing. And now I get to cast the Thought Knot Seer and take something out of my Eldrazi Tron opponent's hand. Hey, Monster CC. Awesome to see you here. There is a Chalice on 1, so I can't go as bananas as I might otherwise. Like, the ideal line here is just cast the Thought Knot, take whatever matters out of the opponent's hand, and then just Ephemerate the Hostage Taker to take something else. But unfortunately, Chalice is shutting that down. So let's get a Thought Knot Seer on the board. We did draw an Oracle for the turn, so we can hold up Force of Negation now. You can see what they've got in their hand. What would you guys take? I'll give you guys a minute. All right, yeah, I took the Maze Mind Tome. No, I'm just kidding. I took the Karn. So here's Maze Mind Tome. Apparently nothing else to do. Maybe they're just planning on ticking up Blast Zone. They do have 1 card left in hand. I think they played the Waste and the Tome, so we don't know what the last card in their hand is. But we do get to start slapping them with their own Thought Knot Seer, which is... it's just so wonderful. Before combat, might as well run out the Oracle. At this point, we will, even if we cast it, we'll have mana up to be able to hard cast Force of Negation. Coiling Oracle, give it to me. All right, well, that's another good one. If we don't have to cast the Force of Negation, we can just flash in the Coatl. And like, honestly, like, this was just the most satisfying game of Magic ever. All right, so we're gonna pass the turn. Remember that these 2 1-drops are offline for the time being. For those of you who haven't heard me talk about Hostage Taker, it's very, very strong in a Blink deck. I've just been discovering over the last 2 weeks like how well it slots into the Soulherder strategy, because you don't just take the opponent's stuff and cast it, which is good enough. You can actually target. You can take your own stuff. I don't think people realize this. Like, why would you take your own thing hostage? But it has so much utility, because if you're ahead against control and you're just trying to lean in for a few points of damage, they have to wipe the board, right? They have to remove your creatures. So if you tuck away like your own Eternal Witness with Hostage Taker, they wipe the board, Eternal Witness comes right back and grabs something from the graveyard. Maybe it grabs Hostage Taker from the graveyard. So amazing utility that way. even just reusing its ability with Ephemerate is really busted. So people might think it just seems like really, what would the word be, like Timmy-ish or Winmore or whatever, but look at it in this game, you know? Like, it's been just ridiculous. So, Monster, what are you saying here? You use it to great effect in your Animatu EDH. Well, cool. I'm glad that it sees play somewhere, because it's a really cool card. So, opponent making good use of this Maze Mind Tome. I believe they just drew a card. Obviously, we're not really close to lethal anytime in the next few turns, but that's not what our deck is about. Our deck is about sort of making it impossible for them to win. So Reality Smasher, you know, we can't force that, but we're still sort of fine, because Ice Fang is going to have Death Touch. So getting in with the Reality Smasher, gonna flash in this Coatl. Got my basics online. We drew a Chord. Ugh, so things are just like fantastic right now in this game. It's like the magic gods are just channeling themselves through me. So we drew the Chord, which means we can actually do some spicy stuff right now. So for anybody watching, particularly McDerp and Cespen, like Soulherder players, but honestly, any of you guys watching, I think you have access to the list over here with Cardboard Live. What would I get with Chord of Calling here? You know, there's a lot of options. I've got a lot of 3-drops. I can name it for you, some of them for you guys. I've got more Eternal Witnesses. I've got a Deputy of Detention. I've got a Knight of Autumn. I've got Uros. Obviously 2-drops like the snakes. Can't get 4-drops because I can only cast. I can only generate X equals 3 here. Oh, and of course Soulherder, right? Of course Soulherder. All right, so we're all on the same page. Excellent job, guys. I'm gonna throw the Ice Fang in front of the Reality Smasher, and the reason not to get like Knight of Autumn, for example, right now, is yes, it would blow up Chalice and give us access to our Ephemerate, which is very important. But Soulherder can just blink Hostage Taker at the end of our next turn. And once you take Chalice, it's pretty much dead forever, because even if they kill Hostage Taker, Chalice comes back and it's just on 0. So in this case, Soulherder is going to do what Knight of Autumn would do, which is to say destroy the Chalice. But it will do even more than that. It will, if they don't deal with it, it's just going to obviously keep targeting things on our end steps. So now, I think it's important to note, and we can look at Soulherder when I get it, but I'm pretty sure if I blink the opponent's Thought Knot with Soulherder, it would go back under their control, which would not be wise. Yeah, so I guess McDerp, we're out of sync a little bit, but I just laid out why I wouldn't get Knight here. But I was definitely thinking about it. So get the Soulherder, we kill the Reality Smasher, they hit us for 4. Go down to 8. They're left with a Matter Reshaper. They're not doing much with their Blast Zone here. I think I drew Uro for the turn, which seems like it's just a solid thing to start off with. See what I draw, but first we can crack in with the Thought Knot Seer here. Let's go ahead and check Soulherder's text to see if we can blink our Thought Knot. It's not even the best target, but it's good to know what we can do. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile another target creature you control, then return that to the battlefield under its owner's control. Yeah, that's what I thought, is that if I blink this thing, it would be stupid, because then the opponent would get it back. So crack in. I think the opponent took it, okay, and then now we get to get Uro, and still hold up. Actually, once we get rid of the Chalice, we'll be holding up Ephemerate and Force, so let's see. Okay, Uro draws a land. Actually, pretty good, because now we can hold up Force, cast both Force and Ephemerate if necessary. So I'm going to blink the Hostage Taker, take away their Chalice. Really not afraid at all of this Matter Reshaper. And it's interesting to see that we have a nice diversity of CMCs. The opponent doesn't necessarily have a best choice with their Blast Zone. If they want to go up to 4 to get rid of these 2, or go up to 3 and get rid of these 2, it's not like playing Merfolk where you just get wrecked with Blast Zone on 2. So opponent activating Maze Mind Tome, I think on their upkeep. They hit an Urza's Power Plant. Still no Tron online. But what is this going to be? So the Walking Ballista on 2. A little bit a little bit scary, but not that scary. I was thinking their line here must just be play Walking Ballista on 2 and like immediately shoot down the Soulherder, right? Because Soulherder is the source of all the value in our deck. Well, on our board state right now. Another plan, of course, could be just like Walking Ballista, shoot the Eternal Witness. I guess that is another source of potential value. Eternal Witness and Coiling Oracle. Or, you know, just untap with it and try to dump mana into it and make it bigger. If I didn't have the Ephemerate, I would be a little bit afraid of this. It would set me back a decent amount. But since I do have the Ephemerate, really not scary at all because I can just respond to whatever they do. So, McDerp, I'm sorry, what are you saying? Not playing with Force for long. This looks spicy. All right, so yeah, they didn't go for anything with Walking Ballista right away, and they're not attacking. So I chose not to do anything with the Ephemerate. I guess I could have Ephemerated the Hostage Taker right away to nab the Walking Ballista, but they could have just unloaded onto the Soulherder, which seems poor for me. So I think attacks are still good with the Thought-Knot Seer. Opponent blocking, probably going to ping the Soulherder, the Thought-Knot Seer just to draw a card. This guy died, and we can see what he's going to reveal here. Warping Whale, again, really removal not a huge threat with Ephemerate in hand. We also have a Force if we feel like it. Yeah, Force is amazing. I actually was like cheating on Force and Path. Like I was on like 3 Path and 2 Force, trying to be cute with like the numbers. But then I saw Gabriel Nassif pick up this deck for the first time in a while, and he had this kind of naive, like really kind of old-fashioned Soulherder build, but it just had the 4 paths and the 4 forces, and it just made me think like those cards are just like at the top level of card power in Modern, and I'm running a 60 card build. I'm maximizing my chances to draw like my most powerful interaction. Our deck wants games to go to turn 8, 9, 10. And you do that by recycling things like Path and Force. So I'm going to play out the Birds of Paradise here. No reason to keep it in hand. And I think we're going to try to blink the Hostage Taker, set up a situation where could potentially Ephemerate. So Walking Ballista, just going to hit the Thought-Knot Seer. Fair enough. And then they ping the bird, which I'm not even interested in responding to. Like, the bird, as I mentioned, was pretty meaningless. So what's going on here? Opponent with 5 cards in hand, and they are passing through. Okay, I mean, they must be on the Blast Zone plan, I guess. I guess I chose to go for this here. I know they have the Warping Whale, but I've got the Force. If they cast Warping Whale, and I force it, it's excellent for me because I get to start getting like Court of Calling back right now. If they have 2 pieces of removal, which would sort of explain why they didn't cast anything, it's still not terrible for me because it means they have to spend 2 pieces of removal to get rid of Eternal Witness, still leaving Soulherder and some value creatures on the battlefield. Maybe a little bit greedy, but it sort of forces their hand a little bit. No pun intended. All right. So, and also, it's worth pointing out that the Dismember does take their life total down. Our board is getting pretty close to lethal. All right. So, Ephemerate effectively countered. Remember, we do have an Uro chilling in the graveyard. Oh, they have another Dismember. Well, I mean, again, it takes their life total down. I still have a 2-turn clock with Hostage Taker and Coiling Oracle. So, opponent doing what they can, I guess. Definitely going to start here with Uro. It's just a huge body that draws me cards, gains life. I mean, creating quite a hole for the opponent to dig out of here. Another Ice Fang is just fine. We've got Ice Fang plus Path. Chip in for 3 here and see what the opponent can do. And it seems like they can't really do anything. So that was the first game. It was probably the best performance by Hostage Taker. But that's absolutely not to say that Hostage Taker hasn't just been amazing in general in this league and just in my games over the last 2 weeks. It's really proven itself. I'm on a Black Splash. For those of you a little bit late to the stream, I can really quickly just sort of show you the deck. The only 2 black cards I have in the entire 75 is a Singleton Siege Rhino and a Singleton Hostage Taker. When I used to play like 4 Siege Rhinos, I also had like 4 Assassin's Trophies and was like going really hard into the Black Splash. But when you do that in a 4-color deck, you get got on your mana like every other game, and it gets really annoying. And so playing 60 cards rather than 80 card Soulherder, I can just focus on the best interactive spells like 4 paths, 4 forces. I don't need to dip into other things like Assassin's Trophies. And then I can still just play a Singleton Overgrown Tomb, run Birds of Paradise instead of Noble Hierarch. I explained earlier in the stream that the Exalted is not super relevant for this deck. It's more of a control / sort of prison deck that once we have the game pretty much locked up, we just counter anything the opponent can do. We path any creatures they can play. We stop any attacks that they could have. We draw our whole deck, and eventually, like, there's no way that an opponent can stop us from winning. So Exalted is like the tiniest little drop in the bucket, and it's so much more important for me that I get my black mana. So 4 birds, 1 Overgrown Tomb, definitely make it enough for me to cast my 2 black spells. I've had an opponent crack Field of Ruin on my Overgrown Tomb, and then I just cast an Eternal Witness and get it back, cast Siege Rhino. So that's kind of the gist of what I'm doing here. And again, Hostage Taker has just been ridiculously nutty. So I'm going to go ahead to game 2. If you guys don't want to see the result of the league, you can just sort of look away for a second. I'm going to go out now. Oh, let's go here. So Monster CC, what do we have? What do we have going on here in the chat? This deck, Monster CC, is so I've been playing Soulherder since it was a thing last summer. It's been more than a year now, so the deck is it's more than a year old now. I don't know. It's had its first birthday. I've played a bazillion variations of it. I've played it through red splashes, black splashes, Urian, no Urian, Ether Vial, no Ether Vial, Chord of Calling, Eladamri's Call, on and on and on. There's a bazillion variations, and every variation, the whole point of playing Soulherder is to have fun playing Magic. It's not about getting down a Death Shadow and getting my life total to 3 and attacking you with Temur Battle Rage. It's not like that. It's just super fun. It tries to draw a lot of cards. It's a toolbox deck, so you're playing Chord of Calling that lets you pick exactly the best card for a situation. Like in these 4 match replays that I've been showing you guys, there have been like probably 10 situations where I've had to ask people in the chat, like, what would you do in this situation? Because it's not obvious, right? Like that play in this last game where I had to choose what to get with Chord of Calling. It could have been Knight of Autumn. That would have been an excellent choice. Hard to say that Uro would be bad. Even Deputy of Detention is a good choice. But in that spot, Soulherder was the best choice. And knowing that, just having the flexibility of Chord of Calling and the power of all these individual cards is so excellent. And it's just so much fun, like trying to resist the onslaught of all these aggressive decks and eventually turn the corner. So anyhow, to finish my point here, you were saying the deck seemed really fun. It is really fun, but this particular version with Hostage Taker is hands down the most fun. Like, taking the opponent's Thought-Knot Seer and casting it, and taking their Karn out of their hand, that was like maybe one of the most satisfying things I've ever done in Magic. So this is absolutely kind of nutty against Eldrazi Tron. So Snap Keep, I guess maybe one of these cards could be a Path to Exile or something, but excellent hand here. Opponent kept 7 as well. Okay, jamming a Tron land to start. Eternal Witness is a great addition, but we do want to draw another land or two. Let me check out what you guys are on over here in the chat. So let's see. I like the deck a lot. Value attrition seems real big right now. Yeah, and we just outvalue any kind of mid-range decks. Lavinia is Bay, but isn't she better in the board? Well, I don't have any Lavinias in my list right now, right? I have had her in the main for sure. She's a really strong card, but one of the adjustments I made to my list recently was trimming the curve down to stop at 4. The last 5-drop I had in the deck was Urian, just as a singleton, to be able to grab with Chord, but it felt kind of win more to me, and also just quite expensive. And I've been enjoying kind of the streamlined nature of having a curve that stops at 4. And honestly, I don't think there's any cards I would trim in my sideboard for Lavinia right now. Okay, opponent is cruising to turn 3 Tron. Looks like they've got a 2-drop to play. Walking Ballista, X equals 1. So for me, pretty easy choice to just snap off Ceremonious Rejection here. And if we can get another land to get Rejection back with Witness, we're going to be able to lock this up pretty quick, I think. So Hallowed Fountain, cast the Rejection. Now, if they do have turn 3 Tron, pretty scary because they can just start dumping all the mana into Walking Ballista. So that was really clutch that we had that 1 mana counterspell right there. And we drew the land, so the deck just was doing great things for me in this league. Coiling Oracle, hit a land. It's a white land for Ephemerate. It's pretty awesome. Opponent goes with the Reality Smasher. So this might look pretty scary, right? It's a huge creature. It's got trample. We've got like nothing but 1/1 dorks. We've got no removal. Oh, I'm sorry. I see. You're talking about main deck Lavinia. No, my bad. I'm just not paying as much attention as I should to the chat. Looks really scary, but we've got all the tools that we need right now. We've got lands. We've got Eternal Witness to get back Ceremonious Rejection, and we're at 16 life. So this guy, a 4-turn clock right now as things stand. So nothing to be too worried about here. I got the impression that after this attack, the opponent was F6ing and didn't have removal, like Spatial Contortion or Dismember. And this is true for paper as well as Magic Online, is you need to look for cues from your opponent about like when they've sort of shut off, right? And the best players will be able to bluff that. But on Magic Online, I find that people really are not bluffing as much as they probably should. So I felt like the coast was clear to go for the Ephemerate. It's a bit of a blowout if this creature gets removed here, but it didn't, and I think I read my opponent correctly. And we hit another land, so again, things just being pretty perfect this game so far. All right, I mean, I think we hit land every single time with Coiling Oracle. So turn 3, we're going to have 6 mana. That's a lot of mana. So, I mean, this is an excellent opportunity for some of you guys in the stream, maybe some of you new viewers who got sent over by Nikachu. Any idea? You can look at the deck list. Again, for Chord of Calling, we could go even for like X equals 4 here. Pretty much any creature in my deck I could get. Hostage Taker, Siege Rhino, Venser, Stonehorn Dignitary, Eternal Witness, Deputy of Detention, Knight of Autumn. Are we just casting Chord? Can we afford to play a Coiling Oracle, draw another card, potentially hit another land, and still Chord for whatever the most relevant thing is? Should we just play Witness, grab Ephemerate, cast Ephemerate since it resolved on the Coiling Oracle already? Get back Ceremonious Rejection, hold it up for whatever it is that they could do next turn. All right, we have one person talking about Hostage Taker for the lulz. It is a very funny card. I don't think that's the line I went with. Pretty sure I went here with just gently expanding the board, getting Ephemerate, starting to loop with Eternal Witness, and getting that Ceremonious Rejection back in our hand. Like, again, we're not really that worried about the Reality Smasher. I did ping myself with a fetch, so it is now a 2-turn clock. But if they have a second Reality Smasher, I can hit it with Ceremonious Rejection, which for me was sort of fine. I didn't feel like they had too many possible ways to just kill me next turn. And then, of course, you know, we'll have access to Chord next turn. And we've got Ephemerate looping, so we can start shutting down whatever they want to do with Ceremonious. So, super clear that there's no blocks. I was very happy to see the opponent not play a second Reality Smasher here. You know, particularly with like Cavern of Souls. So the opponent knows I have the Ceremonious in hand, and so they absolutely have to try to be cute here and bait me. So like, unless it's something really important, I'm not going to spend the Ceremonious Rejection. I'm not going to let them land like a Karn or any kind of like big ballista. So they went for Warping Whale, which does kind of hit me because that's our loop with Ephemerate, and I could potentially like Chord on my upkeep for another Witness. I don't know. I didn't feel like this was worth countering at all, so I did let this resolve. They have another Tron land, so a bazillion mana. Only 3 cards in hand, though. So they go for Karn here. Potential... Excuse me. It's totally possible that this is not the strongest card they have in their hand. Maybe they have, like, another Ballista that they want to just dump all their mana into, and they need me to just waste my counter on this. I love this alternate art. The Karn is, like, I don't know, bending the street lamp or something. But it's just really nicely done. But yeah, this is worth ceremoniously rejecting, and if we need to get it back, we can always just Chord for an Eternal Witness again. Now, opponent's at 20, we're at 5. I was able to catch the Ephemerate with Coiling Oracle, and Path is quite nice here. So this is another turn where the correct play is not immediately apparent. Path requires us to pitch a card from our hand, but it is a nice, cheap way to just get rid of this thing and not like necessarily like tap out to Chord for something that particularly like directly deals with Reality Smasher. So I don't know if you guys have some thoughts. Let me hear it. Like, what are you guys leaning towards here? The same palette of creatures is still available, still on the table. Let's see, if we Chord for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we can Chord for a 4-drop and still cast Path to Exile. If I cast one of these two guys right now and don't hit another land or something like that, then I would be able only to Chord for 3 and still cast Path to Exile. So ultimately, in this spot, I decided that not doing anything right away was probably the correct call. Everything in my hand, except the Coiling Oracle, is at instant speed. And the Coiling Oracle can be pitched to the Path to Exile. If they go for some big spell, like if they go for All Is Dust, I can cast Chord of Calling for Venser. And then, of course, Path the Reality Smasher, pitch the Oracle. That would leave them with the All Is Dust still in hand. But I would still have an Ice Fang to cast to draw 2 cards by next turn. Hopefully hit something that lets me either get the Ephemerate back from the yard, get the Ceremonious Rejection back from the yards, etc. So anyhow, there's just really nothing to do on my main phase. So I think I cracked with the intention of doing something, but ultimately just passed to the opponent. They went straight to combat, and obviously we got to do something here. So for me, the most streamlined approach is just path it, pitch the Oracle, and be done with it, right? All right, so the Reality Smasher is finally off the table. As I mentioned, you know, we're a bit of a prison deck. We don't necessarily have to get super worried when an aggressive deck starts swinging for 5 each turn. We've got turns, we've got choices to make. And the opponent looks like they had nothing to do here with 2 cards left in hand, which is really excellent for us because it meant that we can really start to lean on them a little bit. Path to Exile, an excellent draw, deals with the creature half of their deck. And now I can just Chord for Eternal Witness, get back. I didn't want to be too greedy here. If I get back, for example, Ephemerate, and they have removal, they just kill the Eternal Witness right away, and now we don't have any more access to the graveyard. On 2 cards, obviously not having anything that powerful to cast, getting back a Ceremonious Rejection directly is the least greedy line that just makes sure that I'm going to be able to deal with whatever they bring. Yeah, so again, I was tapped out. So if I went for Ephemerate and they had removal for Eternal Witness, that would have been terrible for me. So here, just get in, start taking them down from 20. And I guess I play the birds. No reason not to. Eldrazi Temple, so we're getting some fortunate draws from the opponent here. Eternal Witness is going to increase the clock a little bit, and here now I think I get the Ephemerate, probably cast it immediately, or just hold it, doesn't really matter. We've got the counterspell in hand. All right, so we are swinging here. I think if you, yeah, I actually swung with the birds here by mistake. It's just letting the opponent know who's boss. So they're down to 6. We've got 6 on the board as things stand, but another Ice Fang to contribute in a moment. Opponent on their turn is casting a Matter Reshaper. Path to Exile is an excellent answer for that. Just get the blocker out of the way. And Matter Reshaper only cares about when it dies. So if you exile it, you guys know this, it doesn't actually give them any cards. And so it looks like the coast is clear. We've got this, Ceremonious up, and we drew a Pithing Needle, so deck being very kind to us. Opponent's going to take all the damage, and that's it. So currently at 4-0, having beaten Jund Shadow twice in 2 very interesting matches. Then we beat Mono White, Stoneforge, Death and Taxes. So being at 4-0, I had to think about how I wanted to approach the 5th round. I've been really, really loving this build of Soulherder, and I haven't had too much time to actually play a lot of leagues. So it's pretty rare that I actually get to a situation when I do play a league to have a chance at 5-0ing. So I know that it's okay if you're at 4-0 to discuss the possibility of splitting or doing some kind of negotiated finish with your opponent. And that is what I decided to do in the 5th round. My opponent ended up actually being a very talented player, Pollo Del Mal. I looked up their tournament results, and they have like 60 results, or like 3 pages on Goldfish, mostly in standard. And so yeah, before the opponent immediately just said keep. I didn't choose to keep. I didn't want to start the game yet, so I just proposed to the opponent that I just give him all the treasure chests from this league in return for him just conceding here, because I'd love to get more people interested in this deck, and one of the best ways to do that is to get the list showing up in the weekly dump or bi-weekly deck dump on the mothership. So I could have battled it out. You can see I had an amazing opening hand. It's really excellent. Coiling Oracles are going to jam up the board, keep either ramping us or drawing us into spells. Court of Calling, you saw how powerful it was in the last round. Path, just dealing with whatever. So I talked to the guy. He agreed. He agreed to my idea, and so he conceded both rounds. And I looked, as I mentioned, I looked him up afterwards, and it turned out that 2 modern results that he has had that were published. One was with Jund, and the other was with white-black mid-range with like Kaya's Guile and Dark Confidant, that kind of thing. So those are both very favorable matchups for Soulherder, just because we generate so much more value and we gum up the board so well. So who knows how it would have gone, but I just really wanted to lock it in. I feel like I'm going to start playing more leagues now that I'm more confident with this build. And if I get to this position again where I'm 4-0, I would I'd just play it out. I mean, assuming that the list is going to get published, I think like next Tuesday. Because that's all that matters to me, is that the list is out there for people to see and potentially think is sweet and pick it up. So yeah, that's how the league ended. So I hope that makes sense to you guys, but it was an excellent league, tons of fun. Hostage Taker is like just such a blast to play with, taking people's Reality Smashers, taking people's Thought Knot Seers, taking people's Snapcasters Mages, and it's so much fun. So thanks so much for joining me, guys. If some of you are new to the channel, sent over here by Nikachu, if you could give me a follow, that would be incredible. I do have Merfolk streams every Wednesday night. I just uploaded one to my YouTube channel, the one that was just from this past Wednesday. I went 4-1 with an M. Hayashi build. The only reason I didn't win the 5th match, the match that I lost, I should say, it was against 8-Whack. They had an insane game, and I ended up with this exact line that I could have taken. I thought through it a bunch of times. I was ready to go, but I needed to bounce their Rampaging Ferocidon first with Brazen Borrower, with Petty Theft. And I I played a Lord first, and I was at 1 life, and I got pinged by Rampaging Ferocidon, and I lost on the spot. So it was like pretty tilting. But I did go 4-1 in the league. M. Hayashi's list right now is super fun. I made a couple of tweaks, adding in more Merfolk Tricksters. So if some of you guys are here from Nikachu's stream and you're interested in more Merfolk content, please give me a follow. I'm really trying to grow the channel. I think I just went over 150 followers this past Wednesday. So thank you to you guys who have been watching me. It's just been a lot of fun. I do Soulherder on Monday nights for anybody who hasn't seen it before and doesn't know. Soulherder's on Monday night, Merfolk's on Wednesday night, and then during the summer like this when I've got extra time, I do try to throw in some extra streams here and there. So I guess Nikachu sent you guys over to me. It seems only correct that I try to find somebody to raid as well. So let me see who's online right now. Let's see. Oh, it's Julian is streaming. So I'm going to send you guys to Julian. He's a Legacy Elves streamer, and he's like super smart, really funny, super nice. So just let me go back to the command center here. All right, so once again, thanks so much for joining me, guys. I hope you enjoyed the replay of that cool league that I just finished. If any of you guys are interested in Soulherder, hit me up on Twitter. It's twitter.com/merfolkjoe, and I'll give you a link to the Discord. And yeah, we can talk. We talk all the time on the Discord about card choices, matchups, etc. So I'll see you guys there. Thanks again. Bye.